I'm inviting, so I invite Manira ma'am and Shiny Antony ma'am to the stage. Once again, I welcome you to the Book Brahma Literature Festival 2025 to the Anavarana stage. I request you both to unveil the cover page over there, ma'am.
One moment. Shiny.
Thank you. And now I hand over the stage for the conversation. The stage is all yours, ma'am.
Scrupulous, savage, fearless, witty, bracing, assured, playful, a gentle wit crack of both line and image. This is what other poets have said about Mani's new book. So that you know. Do you want to start with the poem? Can you hear me? Yeah. I picked a longer poem to start because I'm expecting that the conversation will now take over after this. Okay? So, there are a lot of poems written about a journey, and I don't know if you know Dante's well-known poem about the journey of a soul. Well, this is the journey of a body that has no life in it. It is centered in Kashi, and for those of you who know Kashi, you may know of Uttar Kashi, and you may know of the burning ghats, Manikarnika and Harishchandra. Don't ask who is cooking tonight at Harishchandra and Manikarnika kitchens of Kashi. Shroud, tears, skin, sears, juicy, fats, oblation. Did marrow, fizz, fire, laugh. In 3 hours and a half, this human log collectible in a dustpan. For the first time, I think, to count your eyelashes, to pluck them before they're singed. Of each, I'll make a boat unmoored. Where in the worlds are you? As if I poured a sky of wax on you, everywhere you are not, your exact absence. In Uttar Kashi, where sun dives and pirouettes and fish roll their eyes, dodging tangled like doodles, we cup our hands and drink Ma Ganga infused with arias of swans and undertones of glaciers. Sweetness rises, air floats sinless. In Kashi, where shadows howl anxious like dogs marking corners of terraced carts, as lovers drink mirrors, a curly suit rains upon the free bereft, and pundits claim ashes still warm from midnight pyres for altar coffers at dawn. Hey Vishwanath of Kashi, O Mount Alchemy, here I am, weightless. Now take me home. So long as mountains meditate, this river will be wet. So long as boatmen paddle, a lullaby for the dead. Before sun strikes and water turns cold, we row to a spot churning upstream. Hand your ashes over to the current. Ash can't swim. Hangs on to algae on hulls, falls into arms of corals, scraped and bitten by fish, shat along gorges and flats. Why else do river beaches shine? What is mica made of? Yes, it's a killer last line, and also that I'm weightless, take me home. It's beautiful. Thank you. Do you think this is your most intimate collection yet?
I'm going by all the personal pronouns in some of your poetry, the poem titles, and also the cover where there's you meeting our eye, and you know you
The
have
younger me.
younger you, as beautiful then as now. You, me, I, we, us. You have all of that, you know, in most of your poems. So and the title, so that you know, so that we know. So, do you feel that you're opening up to us more over the years?
I would say that some of the themes, there are more specific themes in these poems, so maybe it's easier to relate to them. There's more like a single idea or a single thought in each of these poems, and perhaps the earlier books have had more abstract, more
Conversational, do you feel?
this might be
Yeah.
more conversational, so perhaps it feels like it's more intimate, but it depends on what you define as intimate. I mean, something that is a little deeper, more written at a more subconscious level can also be intimate. It depends on how you want to relate to the reader. The other thing is that in fact there's no reader, because the writer almost like splits into the writer and reader, and then the reader, when reading, becomes the writer. So it's a continuous flow. It's not like an address to somebody else.
I find the introduction that you've written, it's like a beautiful piece of writing. I think I'm overusing the word beautiful. I'm saying everything you read is beautiful. Yeah. I have to now find synonyms for beautiful. No, I think it was very, the introduction is brilliant as it is honest. So I just want to read the first line and the last line if you don't mind. The whole introduction is very good, but I just want to how you've started. At a reading once, a reader asked me, "Have you always been like that?" But these days, I'm craving privacy even from myself. I think you've like bookended, you know, that in a very good way.
The whole conflict and struggle also of a poet who then faces the audience.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit of Greek. There is one part of in this book which is called "Sing to Me." Again, me, sing to me, and I think it came out as a chapbook in Australia a few years ago. And yeah, and I 2019, and I read it then, and I was like, oh my god, you know, your language meets the legends in a perfect fit. So could you talk to us a little bit about how that chapbook came about, and also read maybe something from that?
I've always been very interested in mythology, and these poems are all on different Greek gods and different situations. And of course, all the pomposity of the gods gives us lots of material to laugh at them, as well as to empathize as well. And so that became the material for each of these stories, and then it sort of mixes with the mundane of everyday life, and everything gets mixed up. So let me read you something maybe about the Odysseus, because then very quickly it moves on, the characters move, because then war becomes the common theme, you know, and the voices change. So I'll read you two sections from that. It's called Fated, as in Feted, which gives you the sound of fated as well as you get the meaning of celebrated. But when a warrior is celebrated, that's not very celebratory actually. What does Odysseus do when the Odyssey is done? What does Odysseus do when the Odyssey is done? Memories, man, house on fire, the story ate it all. Back from Iraq, busy being a shape, a guard. Sleeps in the old bed, dines the old way, visitors none. The front hall scrubbed clean, all of Ithaca's young men chatting in Hades. It's all about the oil, they say, finite fire. Odysseus, son of Laertes, father of Telemachus, husband of constant Penelope, family man. A long night, one half in a dream, the other half awake, thinking about it. Over and over again of Helen to the countrywomen, to the one-eyed scarecrow in the fields, said nobody. And the last part in this poem, Arjuna retorts, what do you know, Krishna? What it is to be human? Infant on your knees, excruciating, waiting on teeth, from alphabet soup to the world, pregnant, determinate uterus, milk in your breasts, sleeping, dreaming, 2 hands, 2 legs, breath, bowels, decrepit in the mirror. What do you know, Krishna?
What words do to you and what you do with words, I feel it's very mystical. And it's almost like a secret between you and those words that you pick and choose. I remember one of the first poems that I read by Mani had this word wrecker. And I just loved the way you used that word. And I do feel that you have a knack for zeroing in on a word that once we read that, we can't think beyond that word. We can't think, oh, maybe this. Because sometimes you're reading and you feel, your own work especially, you feel, I can think of a better word if I have time. But wrecker was one word that I came to in your poems and I was like, that's irreplaceable. Can you read
I know
that?
you like that poem, yeah. So, this poem has no title. It's from one of my previous books, Echolocation. I leave myself in the terrace and I go downstairs. I leave myself in the living room and go to the kitchen. I get together sometimes, a hall of mirrors, swearing different stories, playing, you know that I know, that you know that I know. They're all true. Some, the truths you know, some you don't. You look for too much explanation. I can go back to fetch a better memory, and I can recur if you wish.
I just want to talk a little bit about technique, line breaks, because being a prose writer who, as you were saying, I write poetic prose is what I like to think, but mainly being a prose writer, sometimes Mani sends me something she's written at the dead of night and I send her something and we react like maybe a week later or maybe instantly.
Come on, instantly.
Instantly. But what I learned from is that I send you something, you send the same thing back to me, and it's transformed because you've given it those line breaks. And I'm like, okay, one needs to know when to pause, the power of pause. One needs to know when to take a breath. Sometimes it's mid-word, mid-sentence, mid-word, and I write like a schoolgirl kind of poetry where everything will rhyme and everything will finish. And I must tell you that Mani has never tried to please me just like that by saying this is fine, because she might be busy with her own work. She'll always say you can make this better, and not just that, like how some people just frown and say you can make this better. No, she'll tell me how to make this better. So and also when we were working on Rudrakshi's book for Atagalata, so this year, Atagalata published this book by a very young poet called Rudrakshi Bhattacharjee, and I remember it was called The Place. The Place? The Place I've Never Been. And I remember that I edited it and I sent it to Mani, and when it came back to me, like a student, I went through where all you had pressed enter, where you had made it the next line. And I learned a lot from that because the meaning becomes more potent, becomes, like you said, it's armed. A word is armed when it is starting, or when it's ending, or when it's in the middle. and the best position for that, like almost like playing chess. You know the best position for that. I just want to ask you, is that like a lot of work? Is that like a lot of conscious rereading of your own work and you realize where to make those breaks? Or is that something that comes to you in your brain? In the sense that you're composing the poetry and it just like flows into your head like that.
And that happens along with voicing it, with reading it, and then I think the space of the page is there to be harnessed. Because there is time, every poem has got a measure of time, of course, but time is also related to space, and space can be used. I mean, once upon a time, if it's oral, then it's the space of the room, and if it's on a page, why does everything have to be only on the left side? You've got all this space on the right. You can use it. So where the line turns communicates the pauses, because the breath is also is the foot. Breath is the measure of the rhythm. So all of those aspects have to come in, and I think reading it and voicing it happens very quick after that. And it's partly its playfulness also.
I think when I see you do that sometimes in some of the work that I've read before and then you transform it by doing this, it could be yours, it could be mine. I just feel like you have to be a money to write like money. It's like impossible. I cannot imagine in this lifetime that I would get that. No, I'm not a poet.
Yeah.
So it's it's a skill that I can admire. Like you need not be a dancer to admire somebody's footwork. So something like that.
This footwork, yeah. Very well. It's a very beautiful word.
And breathwork, yeah. Your poems in this book come from everywhere and everything, and some of the titles are very, very different. Tomatoes reply, I'm not afraid of death, I'm afraid. So yes, but no. And one marriage is an overcoat and another marriage is a haunted house. Would you like to read that? Yeah.
So this kind of is a set that now people are asking me to read. Can you read this marriage and that marriage? I'm like, okay, those marriages, all right, I'll read that. So this poem is this marriage. This marriage. It's not too cold, I know, but I had nowhere else to keep this overcoat. All my suitcases were full, and my closet overcrowded. So I just let it sit upon my shoulders. And that marriage, a haunted house, afraid to die, echoes fold. Should the poem end there? The happy prince returns on the radio. Swallow, little swallow, will you not stay with me one night longer?
You come back again and again to translations, Gita, Kalidasa, then Saundarya Lahiri. How do you navigate between your own work, your own poetry, and what you're translating?
They're totally different, but also it's the same sensibility going through both of them. Different in the sense, in the translation, I have to be observing fidelity to somebody else's text. I'm following that. So in that sense, I'm not waiting for content from my own head or what I think is my own head. So let's say if if I don't have anything to write, translation is really a great way to engage with writing and to keep in touch with that enjoyable activity. Because it's working with language, with words, with syllables, with all of that. It's just completely enjoyable. And then, of course, if it's a text that I really admire and I want to get to know it, I really want to get inside it and understand it, then translating is really a wonderful way for me to do that. So the purpose is different. But eventually the craft is similar in both, I think. The satisfaction is the same, I think, yeah. But no, actually the craft is not the same. I would say, like, for example, in my Kalidasa translation, the translation of Rahunsham has a different feeling than the one of Meghadutam. Because it depends on the meter of the source text also. It depends on the mood of that text. Then you have to kind of come up with something that the chemistry changes.
Do you think in poetry, editing is overrated? In the sense that, in prose, editing, rereading, reviewing your own work, coming back to your writing with a fresh mind and eyes, a fresh pair of eyes is very, very important. Because then you're weeding out what you don't want and you kind of come to. But I've always felt, maybe I'm wrong, I feel that poetry occurs to poets almost like a dream. Like those lines look like they were meant, those words look like they were meant to follow each other.
It looks like natural.
Yes, very organic to the thought. It's almost like there is no barrier between the thought and what's being expressed.
A lot of work goes into it. A lot of work. Sometimes it could be lots and lots of pages, out of which only 2 or 3 lines survive. And then once the germ of a thought is extracted from it, then that might be developed further. And sometimes I might end up writing something that I never started out with. So in that sense, writing is a way of exploring the thought also. So it's not like the entire idea or the thought exists in the beginning. You start with something, and the writing helps discover what is there to be said. So there's a lot of meandering, a lot of rambling sometimes, and then eventually when it's there, like all the matter, and you know what it's saying, then there is lots of editing and lots of removal of unnecessaries and paring it down to the most important parts and then shaping it. So there's a lot of editing. I do a lot of rewriting and crafting. Sometimes you remember, if you've sent me a poem, I'll say, Shiny, this one line is all that you can salvage here. Yeah.
Let me just shift the question somewhat. Where does or how does a poem begin for you? Because I know sometimes, because novels or short stories are very, very different ballgame altogether, but I remember sometimes when I'm working on something, I'll be asleep and that dream, that between sleep and wake kind of time, either you're just falling asleep or you just wake up and you get this sentence which is like ready-made and which has a cadence, which has a flow. Yeah, and then you kind of, and it's because you've been thinking of the plot and thinking of your story and you know exactly where to fit it into the story. So I wanted to ask, it can start for people, a story can start from like from a scene, from something you've seen, or something you've heard, or something you've imagined you heard.
Yeah,
sometimes people are saying something else. It could be a
word,
word,
yeah. It could be an entire line. Sometimes lines.
Yeah, so
are
basically I want to know, Mani Rao, where do your poems actually come from? Is it like intuition, gut feeling, or does it actually, like I feel I'm a word slut. So for me a lot of stuff just happens because I've heard a particular word. So then I take that word and I kind of try to run with it. So where does the poem start for you?
With words, I have to confess, I love to pun a little bit. So the humor also comes in there. So sometimes it could just be mischief around a word, like that one about my dear, I say, because she has been expensive. Like dear and dear, it's been expensive. So the humor also comes in, but it's just a play on the word, that's all. It could be a scene or a memory or anything. It could be anything sensory. It could be an idea, sometimes it could be a concept. Like that one about a little secret. There's a concept about how all the deity images are now so large. Whereas once upon a time they were cooked and inside a cave. not a cave, the temple cave, the Garbhagudi. So sometimes it could be a concept and I'm trying to explore and like make an argument, so to speak. But that's not the norm for me.
Can you just read? We spoke about line break, we spoke about humor, we spoke about your poems, Tomatoes Reply, I'm not afraid of death, I'm afraid, and stuff like that. So anything that comes to you for reading?
I can read a couple of poems just as a break from talking about them also. Okay, so this poem is called Waiting for Gold. You know how we all talk about the golden age, especially when there is an atrocity, and we remind ourselves that, once upon a time in the golden age, everything used to be really nice and women were looked upon so well, etc. So, Waiting for Gold. Long, long ago, very, very long ago, when this star was in that constellation, men and women were equal. Cobbler could be king. According to Surya Siddhanta, the golden age will return. When planets line up along the ecliptic in Pisces just before Aries on a new moon day in Phalguni, quote this poem then. Another simple one, this is called Safe. When I tell my mother I'm going someplace, she warns me of crocodiles that look like logs, mountain lions behind rocks, lonely roads and rakes, tall grass, irate snakes. One must never enter caves or go to the restroom in large malls solo. She speaks without word breaks. No wonder I am so fearless. All the panic safe with her.
This poem gave me a lot of guilt pangs because I always text my daughters only the negative stuff. I'll tell them it's raining in your city, be inside the house, and So I think they just, and I see that they are unopened. My lovely texts warning them about life in general, they go unopened. And I read that poem and I was like, okay, that's written like a daughter. You can read one more poem. Or I would like to ask, you can find a point to end with. I think just told us 2 more minutes now. Yeah. I just wanted to ask you, do you have a particular place where you sit to write and that's the only place that or are you like those writers that write it on tissue paper and during flights?
No, it's not like that. If it's
and you need
if
your
it
coffee,
comes and then it goes.
do you
I'm
need
not
like your coffee or do you need like wine or is there any ritual to your writing?
No, I don't.
Because we can copy your rituals if not your writing itself.
No, nowadays I'm editing in the mind, meaning there'll be something and it will just be playing in the mind and I'll be working on it there. So
as you move
just
about,
moved in a little bit. I don't
so even when you're talking to us, you are like actually composing your.
I'm sure
lines.
you're writing some novel or beginning of a story. Every time I talk to Shiny, I think, I hope she's not going to use that in her next story.
I won't.
And in fact, sometimes I have to warn her, okay, you're not going to put this in some book that I see tomorrow.
I'll never do that. But why don't you end with the poem?
Okay, I will end with the poem that I usually start with. Okay? So, why not? May as well, no? Yeah. My mother came home one day without her uterus. The doctor took it out. Like someone heard me say, let's act it out. Act it out physically. I was the baby who never cried, the snake on your breast who stung you dry, the vicious pet, and yet you held. I shot past her knees, past her hips, past her breasts, past her shoulders, way past those wisps of hair, those rays of grey light radiating from her shrunken head. She had to look up to speak to me. She had to have wide eyes. Life begins when the children are out of the house and the dog is dead, I said. She laughed, dyed her hair black, made me stay. Time brings children. They burn holes in our stomach, pop our belly buttons. Death makes sense. Weightless in your sticky fluids, too long you kept me in.
Thank you, Mani, and thank you, everyone. I just wanted to tell you all.
And thank you to all of you for coming.
I just wanted to add to that if words are your thing, then this is your book. Thank you.